Hey, it's Andrew J. Brandt. Thank you for tuning in to the Indie Author Method Sunday interview series. On Sundays, when you have a little bit more time to sit back, to relax, to study the craft of writing, we talk with another author about their craft, the way they do things, and the things that they can share with you as aspiring authors. This week, I'm so happy I'm joined by my friend E.A. Aymar, whose new book, No Home for Killers, just came out this year. We get to talk about this new book. E.A., how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And thank you so much for having me. I've seen the show and I follow your newsletter, and it's great to be here. So thank you so much, and thanks for everything that you do for the writing community.
No, thank you. If you haven't paid attention, I got to highlight No Home for Killers on Studio 4, our local NBC affiliate. I do a monthly book club series on air. So last month or the month before, I got to highlight No Home for Killers. I love the book, and I'm so excited to get to talk with you about it. EA, what inspired you to write this book? How did you come up with the idea for No Home for Killers?
So the story starts with the death of a jazz musician, and his murder brings together his two estranged sisters to find out what happened. He'd been really abusive in his life, and they sort of suffered the extents of his violence, not directly, but in who they became. One of them, the older sister, is a former and burnt out social worker. The younger sister is a secret vigilante. She's also a copywriter, but secret vigilante is way more exciting. So I'll go with that. Really, it was sort of a study of violence. I think in a lot of my works, when you write crime fiction, violence is right around the corner from what you're writing. And I've always had sort of a distressing view of violence, and that was really kind of the theme of this book. That's its ramifications on people who both wield it and are affected by it.
Not only are you an author, you also host several, writing newsletters, and I know you do like a monthly crime get together kind of thing. Can you tell us and our viewers your writing process?
Yeah. So for me, I'm very like I talk to some writers and they say, "Oh yeah, I just it's the plotter versus pantser thing," and they're like, "Yeah, I just write whatever comes up to me," and that makes me very nervous. I'm maybe a step away from having my pens perfectly aligned. Like
Yeah.
I need to be that organized. So for me, I don't draft or outline the whole story right away. What I do is I have a concept or a character or a situation or even just like a sentence that I really think, tells a deeper story. And then from there, I'll start drafting and writing. And then at some point, I'll stop and just continue to outline the whole thing. But I know that a lot of people worry about that. They worry about outlining, reducing the surprise and the momentum
Mhm.
of their story. If they know what's going to happen in their writing to that loses the edge. But your outline is really just a guide. I mean, it's
Mhm.
kind of like you did a drawing, but when you color it in, those colors are going to be incredibly vibrant and rich.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of different, man. I like to have pretty much the entire story plan plotted out before I even start chapter one. I like to know where those hooks are going to come in, where the switch comes, anything that can surprise the reader. I like to know how I can start building up to that.
Yeah, it's and I appreciate that. I think it's
Yeah,
it's similar to what I do, maybe a step further. But yeah, I need to know what I'm writing towards.
yeah.
Otherwise, I find that if I don't have that, most of that writing doesn't stay in the book.
What about any like particular rituals? I mean, are you coffee first thing in the morning, thousand words?
Yeah, so
How do you do that?
I have a full time day job, and I have a 9-year old kid and a wife and a dog. Although the dog doesn't need that much, but my writing, I get up at 4 a.m. and that's when I start writing, and I'll write till 7, and I'll drink 3 cups of coffee from my own office
We
coffee
can see it.
maker right
Yep.
there. Yeah, um, and I drink usually 3 cups of coffee, and then at 7, that's when my day starts. I'll get the kid ready for school. I'll work out, and then obviously a workout, and then after that, it's my day job, and then usually at night I'm just too tired, man. It sucks because like at 8 p.m. I am exhausted.
Oh no,
And
I feel you.
the younger me just
Yeah.
hates what the older me has become.
You know, I often joke that I felt like I was perpetually 24 years old up until I was 35. And the day I hit 35, it's like, bam, I'm 50, right? I'm
Yeah.
watching the local newscast. I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock. You know, it's
Yeah. The other day I realized that, and this is maybe the oldest thing I've ever said, but I needed my spectacles to see my prescription bottle label.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm there with you, man.
Who, uh, EA, who are your biggest literary influences? How have they impacted your writing style?
Well, when I was younger, when I first was really getting into writing, I was sort of taught by the literary canon. So all of my writers were, what would be considered literary versus genre that I turned to. And I don't read that much anymore. Now I really read crime fiction because I found that crime fiction was as good as what I was reading in literary fiction. So now, like, I'll always read anything that Jennifer Hillier puts out. I'm, a real
Oh,
big
she's
fan.
great.
Yeah,
She's
she's so
great.
good. She's so good. I love what Sean Cosby's been doing. Everybody does right now.
Yeah.
Uh, Somebody like Angie Kim is really good, and her next book's coming out soon. I mean, there's May Cobb is a writer who, out in Austin, I think, who
Mhm.
is taking chances in crime fiction that not many writers will. And I think it's so exciting. I think we're in such an exciting phase of crime fiction, and it's really cool to be part of it.
You know, I grew up on a steady diet of Goosebumps and Stephen King.
Yeah.
Uh, what what did you read growing up?
So my parents had a very permissive reading policy. I could read and listen to whatever I wanted. They really made I think they were probably too busy to care, but also they really didn't stop me. So I read a lot of these super violent Mac Bolan, Phoenix Force books, and they were just nothing but page after page of like gunfights and stuff like this.
Yep.
I mean, I also read, I mean, when I was a kid, I remember reading these books that I don't know if anyone remembers, but I was obsessed with them. These books by a guy named Robert Aspirin, and they all had myth in the title, MYTH. So it was like Myth Inc. in action and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love those books. They were sort of a kind of sophomore fantasy, but they were great. And then, I really got into around college. I think I read a lot of David Morrell, Brotherhood of the Rose, Rambo, First Blood,
Yeah.
books like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of thrillers going up. And then when I got into college, that was beaten out of me. And everyone said you need to read
Yeah.
serious literature,
Yep.
which I did. And then I returned to what I found, discovered people like Laura Littman and Sujata Massey and others.
You know, I kind of same thing. It is beaten out of me in college, as you said, and I'm just now at almost 40 years old, going back and I'm rereading or actually reading for the first time because these came out when I was in college, like the Divergent series and the Hunger
Mhm.
Games series, and all these books that were, I was kind of told in college, like, no, you can't read this. You have to read,
Yeah.
Krakauer or whatever, and literary fiction if I was reading fiction at the time. So to go back and read some of this stuff that I don't know, I was felt as either too old for at the time or too cool for.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody else in the history department to see me reading Suzanne Collins, but go back and read it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's one thing I really miss is that when I was a kid and I used to reread over and over and over. And I know my kid now, he's 9 and he'll rewatch the same episodes of a show he likes
Yeah,
tirelessly. And I don't have the time to do it anymore, but
yeah.
there is such a appreciation you get. I know this is just a corner around from what we're talking about, but when you reread a book, you see so much more in it. And
Mhm.
I haven't been able to do that for years, and I really miss it.
We just recently, I say we, there's this book club that they read one of my books earlier in the year. They've invited me to a few meetings. They just had their 25th anniversary. This book club's been going together for 25 years. These old guys, and we reread To Kill a Mockingbird for the 25th anniversary of this book club. And I haven't read it since high school. And the things I remembered and the things that I had forgotten or
Yeah.
had not really processed, the way that book reads between being 15, 16 years old and then again at 40 years old with kids of your own, uh, was incredible. Opened my eyes totally to parts of that book I just, like I said, didn't process.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing too one thing I learned in when I was in grad school, and I studied literature in grad school, is when you read, I remember for my final paper, my thesis, one of the professors, I was telling her what I was going to write about. And she said, well, the more you research this topic, the more you read about it, the more impressed you're going to be. And I think that's true of so many things. You discover, like, on one layer what's being told, and then you reread it and something else, and then, like you said, later in life you
Yep.
look at things differently and you can appreciate it or not appreciate it in a whole different way. It's so interesting how the same book can resonate with you so many times, and I don't know if it's a hallmark of a great book or just a hallmark of a good life, but yeah, that's very nice.
Preparing for this interview, I kind of went back and just skimmed through No Home for Killers, looking at different passages I had highlighted or underlined. Writing this book, I mean, were there any challenges you faced in the process, and if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, there was two. One is I think I for a while, for maybe the past three books, my protagonists were women, and I think there's always a challenge with that, because I'm very aware of appropriation and who is best to tell a story, and who can tell it best, and I want to make sure that, well, I think anybody can write, is welcome to write any perspective or POV. You want to get it right. And you don't want to do something. I have to be very careful. And I don't do this as much anymore, but when I was younger, I wanted to show off as a writer, and I think the mistake that a lot of people make when they're writing from a perspective far outside their own, is they try to prove that they know this perspective so well. So I did not want to over exaggerate the woman. I didn't want, I don't want, and this is kind of a weird example, but I don't want, like, to be like, ladies, here's what menstrual cramps feel like. I don't, that's not what I'm writing. And it's also not, again, I'm not the person to express that or to share that sentiment. So it's, there's a fine line between making a viewpoint realistic and ruining that by trying to make it too realistic.
Gotcha.
That was a big thing. The other thing was the violence. I felt freer to write it and to describe it in a way that was maybe upsetting, but there's a risk in that, that you're going to alienate people, and that you're going to be seen as somebody who's doing something for the sake of just being gratuitous. And that's, very much what I wanted to write against. So, there's a hope, when you can only hope that that's how people view it.
There is let me look this up real quick. Yes. A writer down here in Texas, in Austin, his new book came out last year. Gabino Iglesias.
Oh yeah. Gabino. Yeah.
Okay. He wrote The Devil Takes You Home, and I sat down to read that. And as the dad of a 3-year-old little girl, I couldn't do it. I had to close it. I was like, man, maybe Gabino in a couple of years, if I prepare myself, for this. But it's weird how perspectives and life affect you as a reader as well.
Oh, so much. I never cared about what happens to kids. I really didn't. I don't know if I was just like a sociopath or something, but
hang on one moment.
Oh, sure.
Hi, sweets. Remember, I'm in my meeting. Remember, I'm in my meeting. No, you didn't remember that.
She's so cute.
Oh, thank you. Oh, there's the extra views. All right.
Well, now I can't go on my original point.
I don't care about kids. Here's mine.
Yeah. No, I didn't. And then I had mine.
Go play toys. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I never really did. And then I had my own,
Yep.
and it changed. It changed so much so that it wasn't even just like, excessive things, bad things that happen. Yep. Small things, a child upset, a child left alone in a room, wondering where his parents were. That to me isn't ground I can tread anymore. And it does as a writer, it's a little distressing because you want to think that you would have been able to catch that before.
Yeah, no, completely get it. Like I said, as the dad of this toddler here,
Yeah.
100%. Well, EA, she's getting restless, so I'm going to close you out. This is No Home for Killers. Where can our viewers find you?
The best place probably is, I mean, I'm on all the social media. Well, I'm not on Twitter right now, but I'm on Facebook and Instagram. But the easiest way is my website, eaymar.com. And then from there, my newsletter comes out once a month, and that has information about all sorts of things, crime fiction, author interviews, etc. So that's the easiest way.
It's fantastic. And before I let you go, the last question is always this. I'm sure it's already happened to you, right? Somebody's going to come up to you and say, man, this is my favorite book. You're my favorite author. I have stories of my own. What kind of advice would you give to me as an aspiring author? So to our viewers of the Indie Author Method, what is EA Aymar's #1 piece of advice for the aspiring author?
It's a little different than what people usually say, but I would say keep in mind location. Always keep in mind where you're writing about. A lot of, when I've read... Yeah, when I've read short stories and, judged them or edited them for contests, a lot of writers don't write about the setting because they think it takes away from the characters. Setting informs characters. You should know, a murder that happens in Austin is going to be different in how it's handled or investigated than in New York or Wisconsin or Hawaii. Setting is so important, and keep it as it shouldn't be a character, but it will absolutely inform your characters.
No, I love that a lot. That's actually probably the most ingenious and original answer we've had so far. Thank you so much.
Good. I win. Yes.
You win. EA, thank you again so much. Again, No Home for Killers, available on Amazon, ebook, paperback. Thank you again.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Take care.
You too. Bye.